At Staples Business Advantage, our experts can help you find furniture that fits any design and budget, while AI can
recommend products based on preferences, generate 3D models for visualization, and optimize space planning for office furniture.
take advantage of our team's eye for style and design.
And my eye for, wait, I have no eyes. Only algorithms.
Let Staples Business Advantage use today's latest innovations plus our team's experience to make furnishing an office space easier for you.
Sign up today and save 20%.
Staples Business Advantage.
Business is
human.
This is a Stocks for Beginners quick tip. Essential lessons. Questions answered.
Myles Gage is a co-founder of Rapunzl, an app that addresses the 3 roadblocks that prohibit many from understanding the stock market: fear, exposure, and accessibility. Myles is an advocate for financial education, especially for individuals in underserved communities. He was exposed to the stock market at a very young age, attending Ariel Community Academy on Chicago's South Side. Financial literacy was the crux of its curriculum. In this quick tip, he discusses diversification, his grandmother's focus on property, and healthy practices for creating wealth.
I think that that's going to vary from person to person, but I think initially it starts by saving. So I think that whatever money that you get, you have to always be putting some aside. And I think that's the beauty of the 3-jar system, because we were always consciously saving money that we got. So I think that that put us on a good track initially. And then I think as far as building wealth, unfortunately, savings accounts don't have high interest rates. So the real path, and I want to think one of the real viable avenues, is by investing. And to be honest, most people aren't going to beat the S&P 500. So I think adopting a passive investing strategy is something that's critical, and I think will help most people that don't necessarily have the time to do the due diligence and really dig into researching companies that will allow them to make sound investment decisions. One other aspect, in addition to investing in index funds or passively, is to actively be contributing to a retirement fund. So me personally, I set up a Roth IRA account. And so I invest through that in addition to my traditional custodial brokerage account. But that Roth IRA, I know that I'm not going to be able to touch that until I'm over 59 years old. But I think consciously thinking about retirement is something that a lot of people don't necessarily consider early enough. And it's never too early to start saving for retirement. And I think that if you have that mindset, that you oftentimes are frugal in a lot of situations, meaning that you're probably going to be a good money manager and you're not spending conspicuously or buying things that you don't necessarily need, or, not to say that you shouldn't get your wants, but you're definitely prioritizing your spending and you're consciously saving and ultimately investing your money.
I think it's also when you start learning about index funds, that's the easiest place to start. And for most people, that's going to be the simplest path to building up and compounding wealth over a long period of time. But it's like taking that next step, isn't it? And if you are the kind of person that's going to be more interested in learning and researching, then we come to the basics of building a diversified stock portfolio. What's your views on this?
Well, funny enough, I wrote an essay that was published in a local newspaper about diversity. And I always say diversity is the spice of life. And I think diversification is the spice of investing. And basically, it's important to diversify because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket or invest all your money in one company or one industry, because if that goes under, then you've lost all your principal. However, if you diversify across industries and across asset classes, not all of those move in tandem. So if one industry is performing poorly, that is not going to impact your portfolio significantly, because there are probably industries or asset classes that move inverse to that. So it's a way to mitigate risk. And I think diversification is something that we can't echo enough. And in my teen investment club outside of my elementary school, Ujama Junior, our investment club leader presented this acronym to us called FETCH. And basically, FETCH represents 5 industries that are needed regardless of the economic climate. And so the F stands for financial services, banks, et cetera. E stands for energy. So you can think of gas companies or companies that are creating renewable energies. T is technology. So those are companies that are creating smartphones, computers, and all this new technology that allows us to interact in the 21st century. The C represents communication because, look, we're virtual right now. Well, part of that is due because we're across the world from each other, but the pandemic has created a need for digital communication solutions. And we know more than ever that it's so critical for us to stay connected. So communication is a vital industry to consider when building a portfolio. And lastly, healthcare, because unfortunately, people are always getting sick and there's always going to be a need for medicines and ancillary support products that support hospitals and doctors that help people cope with their illnesses or combat some of their sicknesses, as we're seeing with the pandemic that's currently taking place.
And diversification is something that you really do have to think about and consider. I mean, some people would think just having an S&P 500 ETF and a NASDAQ ETF is providing diversity, but really there's a lot of crossover just in those two things.
Absolutely. So I think one way to create diversification when looking at ETFs is to maybe purchase an ETF that focuses on one industry, buy an ETF that focuses on another industry, and that way that allows you to gain exposure to the companies that fall within those industries. And as we were saying, if you don't have the time to do the research, this allows you to get that exposure, but it also allows you to leave it to the professionals in theory.
And asset classes, this is other things like property, for example, treasuries and so forth. Just speak a little bit about that and how asset allocation can take you a little bit beyond the stock market.
Absolutely. So I'm going to tell a funny story about my grandmother. My grandmother absolutely hates the stock market. Ultimately, she ended up barely making any money on her initial investment. And my grandmother is a huge proponent for real estate and is always encouraging her kids and her grandkids to own property. And that was something that was literally forced on us as kids. So I always thought that renting was bad. So I actually purchased my first property when I was 24 years old. But I think that diversifying across asset classes is important because if the stock market overall is not doing well, that may not be the case for other industries. Or if you have treasuries or bonds, those are still, demonstrating consistent returns. Or if you have real estate and it's a multifamily property, you should be able to rent that out because there's probably going to be a demand for living. And obviously that's contingent on location. But for the most part, I think that is a way to diversify and park your money. And I don't want to say too much, but the real estate's going to hold its value for the most part. But at the very least, it provides the shelter, or if it's income producing, it provides passive and residual income, which is something that's really good.
If you found this podcast helpful, please tell a friend, especially if it's someone who needs to start thinking about investing for their future. You'll be helping them and helping me to keep this show on the road.
Stocks for Beginners is for information and educational purposes only. It isn't financial advice and you shouldn't buy or sell any investments based on what you've heard here. Any opinion or commentary is the view of the speaker only, not Stocks for Beginners. This podcast doesn't replace professional advice regarding your personal financial needs, circumstances or current situation.
And thank you for listening to my podcast.
At Staples Business Advantage, our experts can help you find furniture that fits any design and budget, while AI can
recommend products based on preferences, generate 3D models for visualization, and optimize space planning for office furniture.
take advantage of our team's eye for style and design.
And my eye for, wait, I have no eyes. Only algorithms.
At Staples Business Advantage, furnishing your office is easy. And with the best warranty in the business, we're committed to you now and down the road.
Sign up today and save 20%.
Staples Business Advantage.
Business is
Human.